Welcome back to Grim Ghouls, where two best friends are obsessed with dark mysteries, twisted killers, and the cases that keep people up at night. Think late night hangouts if they included serial killers, conspiracy theories, and us spiraling every 10 minutes. I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Madison. And tonight we are talking about the Pike County Massacre, a case that will leave you saying, what in the world is going on here? We would like to say a trigger warning for our viewers before we get started. This case involved murder, gun violence, family annihilation, and the mention of minors. Listener discretion is advised. As always, please take care of yourself while listening. And with that being said, dim the lights or light a candle, lock the doors, and grab your comfort snack and blanket because tonight's case is a wild one. Before we jump in, we do want to put out a quick disclaimer. Everything discussed in this episode is based on publicly available information, court documents, interviews, news reports, and investigative findings available at the time of recording. Our goal with this episode is to discuss the case respectfully and responsibly while sharing the information currently available to the public. Some portions of this case are still legally ongoing, so when discussing allegations involving individuals who have not been fully convicted, we'll be using terms like allegedly and according to investigators.
A 911 call came in about two bodies inside a home on Union Hill Road at 7:15 a.m. The bodies were discovered by Bobby Jo Manley, a sister to one of the victims, who came to feed the pets at the home. Before the police arrived, Bobby Jo discovered two more bodies in a second trailer on the property. Her brother, James Manley, went to check on their sister Dana and discovered a third crime scene, where the police found three more victims. At 1:26 p.m., another 911 call reported an eighth body, an adult male, at a fourth resident in the nearby village of Piketon. 7 adults and a 16-year-old, all connected to the Rhoden family. 3 young children, ages 3 years old, 6 months old, and 4 days old, were unharmed during the shootings, with the 4-day-old being found in bed with her mother's body. The 4-day-old and 6-month-old were placed under protective services, and the 3-year-old was put under the guardianship of his mother, who was not involved in the shootings.
I genuinely cannot imagine the horror of walking into one of these homes and realizing the babies are inside.
And the detail alone tells you this wasn't random rage. This was targeted. Someone made the conscious decision to leave those children alive, which somehow almost makes it creepier to me.
Now, there are a lot of family connections in this case, so let's quickly break down who everyone was. Christopher Sr. and Dana were ex-husband and ex-wife. Their youngest son, Christopher Jr., who was only 16 years old. Clarence, or Frankie, was the eldest son and the father of the 6-month-old and the 3-year-old. Kenneth, which was Christopher Sr.'s brother. Gary, the cousin of Christopher Sr. and Kenneth. Hannah is the daughter of Dana and Christopher Sr., also the mother of the 3-year-old and a 2.5-year-old that was with a relative that night, and also the 4-day-old who was lying in bed with her. Hannah Gilly was the fiancée of Clarence and the mother of the surviving 6-month-old. Christopher Sr. and Gary were discovered in the first mobile home. Clarence and Hannah Gilly were found in the second. Dana, Hannah, and Christopher Jr. were found in the third home. Kenneth was discovered in a camper a short distance away. During the autopsies at the Hamilton County Coroner's Office, they found that all but one of the victims were shot multiple times. Death certificates released on May 28th clarified that 6 out of the 8 victims were shot in the head only. Bruising was also found on some of the bodies, indicating some of the victims were beaten as well. From the numbers of wounds on the victims' bodies, an estimated total of 32 shots were fired during the killings. When we were researching this and just getting deeper into the case, my mouth dropped and I was like, what is happening right now?
Let's get back into it. Now it's time for the real mystery of it all. There were no signs of forced entry, multiple shooters were suspected, an organized attack, evidence cleanup, and investigators called it sophisticated. Investigators briefly considered the possibility of a murder-suicide, but it was discredited as none of the victims' deaths appeared to be suicides. Police believe that more than one shooter was responsible for the killings, since 2 of the crime scenes were within walking distance, the third location was about a mile away, and the fourth was about 8 miles away. Attorney General DeWine stated that the killings were planned, premeditated, and a sophisticated operation. citing the efforts taken by the shooter or shooters to cover up their tracks and remove any incriminating forensic evidence. Surviving members were urged by police to take precautions, and all residents of Peoples were advised to stay inside their homes the following night. There were over 100 investigators, huge media attention, and fear spreading through the town. There were Facebook threats, multiple weapons used, and theories flying everywhere. Some of these rumors were cartel, custody disputes, and the drug theory. At least 5 search warrants were executed, more than 50 people were interviewed in connection with the killings, 79 pieces of evidence were examined, including a Facebook threat aimed at Christopher Jr., which was posted before the shootings.
Now enters Jake Wagner. Jake was dating Hannah Rhoden, starting their relationship when she was only 13 years old.
She was 13 years old when they started this? How old was he?
Jake was somewhere between 17 and 18 at the time Hannah was 13.
A 17 or 18-year-old pursuing a 13-year-old is quite literally disturbing.
Jake and Hannah were having custody issues involving their daughter. He was the father of the 3-year-old, but not the father of the 4-day-old. On June 20th, 2017, Ohio police announced that they were seeking additional information on Jake, as well as his parents. The family was living in Alaska at that time, and police wanted to learn of interactions that members of the public had with the family, specifically conversations about vehicles, firearms, and ammunition. At first, the police wouldn't say much, but behind the scenes, they were zeroing in on one family, the Wagners.
The suspects were all members of the Wagner Newcomb family from South Webster. George Billy was arrested in Lexington, Kentucky. Angela was arrested at her home in Ohio. George and Jake were both arrested during a traffic stop in Ross County. Additionally, as part of the broader investigation, 2 grandmothers, Frederica Wagner, if I mispronounced her name, I apologize, and Rita Newcomb, were charged with perjury and obstructing justice for allegedly misleading investigators. Rita was also charged with forging custody documents to cover up the crime. Frederica's charges were dismissed. Then finally, after all the interviews and interrogations, Jake admitted motive tied to custody, admitted to shooting 5 victims, and the whole thing was allegedly planned to gain control over their child.
Oh, and wait until you hear this next part. After the murders, investigators spent years trying to locate the weapons used to kill the Rhoden family. During the plea negotiations and testimony, Jake admitted that the murder weapons had been hidden inside concrete-filled buckets and dumped into a pond on the Wagner family property known as Flying W Farm. The buckets were basically homemade anchors, and divers later recovered these heavy concrete containers from the pond. When forensic examiners broke apart the concrete, they found fragments of firearms inside, including weapons linked to the massacre. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
When I first heard the details, I had to stop and reread it because it sounded almost unreal, and to realize the police would most likely not have known without Jake's cooperation.
Let's jump into the trials and sentencing. Rita was charged with obstructing official business on December 2nd, 2019. Rita pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of obstructing the investigation. In exchange, prosecutors dropped the forgery, obstruction of justice, and perjury charges against her. She agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. In January 2025, she was sentenced to 5 years of adult supervision and a $753 fine, and could spend 83 days in jail if she violates supervision rules. Frederica's charges against her were dropped in June 2019. Jake was charged with 8 counts of aggravated murder, felony conspiracy, 4 counts of aggravated burglary, unlawful possession of a dangerous ordinance, multiple counts of tampering with evidence, forgery, unauthorized use of property, interception of wire and oral communications, obstruction of justice, engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, and unlawful sexual conduct with a minor.
That is a long list of charges. That list is way too long to be reading.
The state of Ohio agreed as part of the guilty plea not to seek the death penalty for him, his father, mother, or brother. As part of the deal, he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors and testify against his family members. Jake was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences, with the possibility of parole after 32 years. Angela was charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder, several counts of aggravated burglary, tampering with evidence, possession of firearms, forgery, obstructing justice, and engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. The original 8 counts of aggravated murder were dismissed. George, the son, was charged with 8 counts of aggravated murder and tampering with evidence. In 2022, the trial of George finally started. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life without parole. He was moved to Rhode Island as a part of an interstate compact in 2024. George, aka Billy, was charged with 9 counts of aggravated homicide and 14 related charges. As of June 2025, a trial date for Billy has not been set.
The Pike County Massacre is still one of the most disturbing family homicide cases in modern Ohio history. 8 lives lost, children left behind, and an entire community changed forever. Even years later, people are still trying to understand how something this calculated and brutal could happen between people who allegedly knew each other so closely. I think the reason this case sticks with so many people is that it shattered the idea that small towns are always safe. As of now, some legal proceedings connected to the case are still ongoing, and we'll continue to update if new developments happen.
We would love to hear your thoughts and theories about this case because there are so many details. You can find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you can stalk your favorite podcast. Drop down in the comments some of your theories or what you would like to see next on Grim Ghouls. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share Grim Ghouls with your fellow spooky besties.
And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hiding in the dark. Sometimes they're already sitting at the family table. Bye, ghouls!